I didn't realize it went to the FBI. With those 7 words, the nation's top law enforcement officer exposed more than a moment of confusion. She revealed a staggering breakdown at the highest levels of government, a lapse that left lawmakers and citizens alike wondering just who is really in control of the Justice Department. It wasn't a slip of the tongue, it wasn't a harmless mistake. It was a window into chaos, chaos that should alarm anyone who believes in accountability, security, and the rule of law. The exchange began with what seemed like a simple question: who ordered an email to be sent to FBI agents demanding updates on their activities? The congressman pressing for answers wanted clarity. What he got instead was contradiction.
Mr. Mervin.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member. Attorney General, thank you for joining us today. Our law enforcement officers, first responders, and local safety agencies are the backbone of our communities. In Northwest Indiana, I've worked hard to bring critical federal grant dollars home, funds that directly support the brave men and women who protect us every day. Unfortunately, funding for 2025 has been rescinded, weakening our public safety framework and making our neighborhoods less safe. I firsthand have a positive impact in securing dollars and investments for Gary, Indiana, East Chicago, Lake County, and Michigan City that were force multipliers, that were technology such as license plate readers and the COPS grant. I'm asking you today, what can we do to ensure that those funds are going to continue to flow to my district? And in light of the HIDA, I'm in Northwest Indiana, Gary, Indiana. We are a HIDA district where we have the Chicago traffic. That's vitally important to my district. I just need commitments that that funding will continue to be going forward and that our agencies will have that support.
Congressman, thank you for bringing that up. I'm well aware of the HIDA. I believe that's in Maryville. Is that correct?
You are correct.
And yes, that funding will remain where it is. We do not intend on touching that funding. We want to protect HIDA.
Very good. So in light of the escalation with Iran, part of our cybersecurity and our infrastructure when it comes to our electric grid, our banking systems, that is a new threat. Does this budget reflect increasing our cybersecurity protections, and how is the Department of Justice going to protect our infrastructure when it comes to bad actors such as Iran coming directly at our infrastructure in a cyber attack?
Yeah, we have $50 million for cybersecurity, and also in the one big
With an M, 50 million?
50 million, yeah,
Okay.
but also in the one big beautiful bill, it is also addressed to give us more resources. And it's not only
Can I
Iran,
ask-
as you well know, it's China as well. But
Right.
yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you,
In the
Congressman.
reconciliation, tomato, in the reconciliation bill, can you tell me what more resources are going to go towards cybersecurity? Because I was under the impression that was decreased.
I will get you those numbers.
Okay. Yes.
I want to do everything I can to help you protect cybersecurity, all of us in this country, not only again with Iran, but also with China and all of our foreign adversaries around the world.
Okay. And then just a question of curiosity that I have. Director Patel was here a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the emails that went to the FBI agents, meaning, please tell us what you did at the end of the week. Give us 5 reasons why you did. At first, Director Patel said that that didn't exist. Then he specifically said, well, that came from the Department of Justice to the FBI agents. And his words, I told them not to fulfill that obligation. How do you manage that if you give a directive to your director of FBI and he chooses not to fulfill that? And where did that information go? So when someone from the FBI, an agent, fulfilled that obligation of giving you the information of what they were working on, where did that data go and how is it secured?
Yeah, and Congressman, I'd be happy to see who answered that, but I asked, when I learned about it, I asked that it be withdrawn, and it was, that email.
When you learned about the email going to the FBI agents, you asked them to withdraw it. Who did you ask to have it withdrawn?
My entire office, and it was.
So it is unknown who sent that email?
Well, it came from my office, but when I learned it went to the FBI, we asked that it be withdrawn.
Where is the gap of my understanding? If it came from your office, you're telling me you didn't send it?
I didn't realize it went to the FBI. That email went out.
So-
And the purpose of that email was to make sure, just so you know, it was to make sure that these people were sitting at their desk and working and alive, that there were people actually
Okay, and
responding.
I
It
agree.
could have been, I got up and got a cup of coffee.
Sure.
That
So
was
without
the
going into
purpose.
that, the people that did answer it, where did that data go?
I will find out. I will get you that information.
And I only ask as a national security issue as
Absolutely.
they're working on sensitive issues. And I thank you for joining us, and I yield back my time.
Thank you.
First came the admission that the directive came from the Attorney General's own office, then came the denial. She didn't send it, didn't know it went to the FBI, didn't realize the scope of the order. It was her office, but somehow not her. Her name on the door, but no control over the message. The contradiction wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. If the head of the Justice Department can't account for communications sent under her own authority, then who can? That was the moment the hearing shifted. What looked like routine oversight transformed into a revelation of something far more troubling. Because in government, emails aren't just words. They're orders, directives, signals that guide the actions of agents tasked with protecting the nation. A miscommunication here isn't like forgetting to forward a memo in a private company. It's about security. It's about classified operations. It's about lives. And when the person in charge says she didn't realize such a directive was sent, the alarm bells aren't just ringing, they're deafening. But this wasn't just about one email. It was about a culture of carelessness at the top of the Department of Justice. The congressman's questions weren't partisan attacks, they were the kind of questions every citizen would ask if they were sitting in that chair. Where did the data go? Who reviewed the responses from agents? What safeguards exist to ensure sensitive information isn't mishandled? And why did the Attorney General, the very person sworn to oversee these processes, seem so detached from what her own office was doing? The evasive answers painted a picture of disorder. She said she asked her entire office to withdraw the email once she realized it had gone out. But who exactly was responsible? Who clicked send? Who drafted the language? No names, no clarity, just a vague suggestion that the matter was handled. That might satisfy a casual observer, but for lawmakers and for the public, it raised more questions than it answered. And the biggest question of all was simple: if she wasn't aware, then who was really running the Department of Justice? That's not a small question. The DOJ is not just another government agency, it is the guardian of federal law, the overseer of prosecutions, the shield of national security. Its communications with the FBI carry the weight of authority. Every directive shapes how investigations unfold, how agents prioritize cases, how threats to the nation are addressed. And in that context, I didn't realize isn't just weak, it's unacceptable. Because ignorance at the top doesn't stay contained at the top. It trickles down, creating confusion, undermining trust, and eroding the credibility of the institution itself. What makes this even more troubling is that this wasn't an isolated moment. Over the course of the hearing, other cracks became visible: rescinded funding, muddled explanations about cybersecurity resources, promises to get the numbers later. It all added up to a portrait of leadership that seemed reactive rather than proactive, more concerned with appearances than with precision. When lawmakers asked about critical programs supporting law enforcement in Indiana communities, programs that fund officers, technology, and crime prevention, the answers wavered between half assurances and technical deflections. When pressed on cybersecurity and the growing threats from hostile foreign actors, the details were fuzzy at best. $50 million here, another line item buried in a reconciliation bill there. Numbers thrown around like loose change when what was needed was clarity, strategy, and commitment. Think about the stakes for a moment. At a time when cyber threats from nations like Iran and China are escalating, when local police departments rely on federal grants to keep communities safe, when the public demands accountability from institutions of power, the Department of Justice can't afford to stumble over its own internal communications. Yet that's exactly what played out before Congress: stumbles, contradictions, and evasions. And for the millions watching, even if only in clips, headlines, or analysis, the message was unmistakable. The DOJ under this leadership is not in control of itself. Oversight exists to prevent exactly this kind of collapse. That's why hearings matter. They aren't theater. They aren't games. They're the mechanisms through which democracy tests its own institutions, probing for weaknesses and demanding accountability. Congressman Frank McDean's questioning wasn't about scoring political points, it was about basic competence. When he asked where the agent's data went, when he pressed on who authorized the email, when he demanded to know how sensitive information was secured, he was doing his job. And the answers he received or failed to receive exposed just how fragile the chain of responsibility has become. This is what happens when leadership treats oversight as an inconvenience instead of a necessity. You get half answers, you get contradictions, you get admissions that are so startling, they echo far beyond the hearing room. Because when the nation's chief law enforcement officer admits she didn't realize what her own office sent to FBI agents, that is not a minor detail. That is a headline, that is a warning, that is a fracture in the very foundation of trust between the government and the people it serves. And it doesn't stop there. The culture inside the Department of Justice, as reflected in these hearings, seems to value deflection over disclosure, vagueness over precision. That kind of culture doesn't just confuse lawmakers, it corrodes public faith. People expect the DOJ to be the gold standard of integrity, the place where truth and law intersect, immune from the petty evasions of politics. But what happens when that expectation collapses? When citizens see leaders shrug off responsibility, when "I didn't know" becomes a shield against accountability, what is left to believe in? That's the real danger. Not just the mishandled email, not just the muddled answers, but the erosion of faith in one of the most powerful institutions in the country. Because once people stop believing the system is competent, they stop trusting it altogether. And when trust fades, the rule of law weakens, oversight fails, power goes unchecked. That's not a partisan issue, that's a democratic issue, that's an American issue. So the moment we just witnessed, the one where the Attorney General admitted ignorance of her own office's actions, should not be forgotten. It should not be dismissed as a gaffe, or brushed aside as bureaucratic confusion. It should be remembered as a symptom of a deeper disorder, one that lawmakers must confront, and citizens must stay vigilant against. Because democracy doesn't erode in a single collapse. It erodes in moments like these, in vague answers, in shrugged shoulders, in leaders who claim not to realize what their own offices are doing. And the question we're left with is the same one Congressman McDean asked in real time: where did the data go? If agents complied with the email directive, if they submitted updates, if they shared sensitive details about their work, where is that information now? Who holds it? How is it secured? And why couldn't the Attorney General give a straight answer? Those aren't partisan questions, they are national security questions, they are accountability questions, they are the kind of questions every citizen should want answered. But the answers weren't there, and that absence is louder than any admission, because silence, in matters of justice, is itself a revelation. It tells us that systems aren't functioning as they should, it tells us that leadership isn't leading as it must, and it tells us that the fragile fabric of accountability is fraying. That's why we can't ignore hearings like this one. They may seem procedural, filled with jargon and exchanges that drag on, but hidden within them are moments that define the health of a democracy. A single sentence, "I didn't realize it went to the FBI," can carry implications that ripple outward into the public consciousness, shaping how we see institutions, how we measure leadership, and how we decide what kind of governance we will tolerate. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about one official, it's about us. It's about what we as citizens demand from those who wield power in our name. Do we accept confusion and evasion as normal? Do we shrug off incompetence as politics as usual? Or do we insist on the professionalism, clarity, and responsibility that these roles require? That's the choice in front of us. And that's why we can't look away. "I didn't realize" should never be an acceptable answer from the top of the Justice Department. Not when national security is at stake. Not when accountability hangs in the balance. Not when trust in democracy depends on clarity. Because when leaders don't realize what their own offices are doing, it's the people who pay the price. And that's why this moment matters. It's not about theater. It's not about partisanship. It's about the integrity of the system itself. A system that belongs to the people, not to the individuals who temporarily occupy its offices. And when those individuals fail to meet the standard, it's on us to demand better. So if you believe in transparency, if you believe in truth, if you believe that power should be accountable to the people it serves, don't tune out. Stay informed, stay vocal, and stay engaged. Because understanding is power, and when citizens understand, democracy gets stronger. That's why we're here. That's why these hearings matter, and that's why it's more important than ever to demand accountability from those in power. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this one, where we pull back the curtain on the systems shaping your democracy and expose the moments that matter most. Hit like if you found this analysis valuable, and share it so others can see what's really happening behind closed doors. Together, by staying vigilant, we make democracy stronger.